Welcome, and thanks for joining our webinar on Housing Arlington and the Missing Middle Housing Study. Today, I'm going to cover why we're conducting a study, provide a brief overview on its background, framework, and engagement strategy. This information is outlined in detail in a draft study scope, charge, and timeline document, which is available on the study website. At the conclusion of this presentation, we encourage you to provide your feedback on the draft document. Your input will help influence the study's final scope. We've provided a short survey that will remain open through March 1st. We look forward to receiving your comments. Let's get started. We know Arlington is growing. Growth is happening in many metropolitan areas across the nation, and Arlington is no different. Here in Arlington, data has shown a steady increase in population, and that trend is forecasted to continue. The DC metro region is forecasted to gain an additional 300,000 jobs by 2040. We also know that Arlington is a desirable community. People want to live here. We have wonderful parks, great schools, access to transportation, restaurant and retail destinations, historic and cultural resources to visit, and much more. There's a lot to love about Arlington. However, pressures on the regional housing market have intensified. Demand for housing is high. Housing costs are rising, and the Arlington community is frustrated. Let's talk about why this is happening. The real estate market is unable to keep up with demand, and it's not meeting the needs of our diverse population. The growing frustrations around rising housing costs are largely due to two interconnected constraints: a shortfall in housing supply and limited housing choices. First, let's talk about the shortfall in housing supply. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments has identified a housing supply gap at all affordability levels across the entire region. They've forecasted a need to increase new housing by slightly more than 100,000 homes by 2045. That's at all price points and all housing types. Here in Arlington, primarily due to rising rents, the county has lost a significant portion of its rental stock that's affordable to lower income households, a net loss of 13,500 units since 2000. The second constraint, limited housing choices. We have a gap in housing options here in Arlington, meaning housing choices are limited, and those wishing to become homeowners or renters have few options available to them. Arlington's metro corridors offer smaller apartment and condo units in medium to high density buildings. However, that style of housing does not suit everyone's needs. Other neighborhoods offer single-family homes or townhomes in a very limited quantity of other types. In fact, a recent study found that 73% of the land zoned for residential use in Arlington is zoned exclusively for single-family detached housing. Barriers to expanding housing opportunities make it difficult to increase the county's housing supply or provide more choices at a broader range of prices. In many cases, it is not economical to build mid-sized homes and potentially more affordable housing types because the value of land here is so high. Contributing to the problem, Arlington's zoning ordinance and other policy documents restrict potential locations for other housing types. It's not permitted to build smaller mid-sized units such as duplexes or triplexes in a lot of our neighborhoods. These zoning restrictions originated in early 20th century decisions that required the separation of different housing types. This enabled patterns of racial and economic segregation, and the repercussions of that persist today. So, why take action? Why now? Arlington's neighborhoods are changing. This will continue with or without policy change or an intervention. You may see evidence of this on your own street or in your own neighborhood. You might see older single-family homes being torn down and rebuilt, or perhaps new construction popping up. Current trends show that new housing construction is either very large or very small. Not much is happening in the middle. In single-family neighborhoods, It's large townhouses and single-family homes that are being built. They're expensive. They're priced out of reach for many Arlington households. In metro and planning corridors, apartment units are being built, but they're small. Most include just 1 or 2 bedrooms. And again, this isn't meeting the needs of every household. If we do nothing to address these challenges, the existing housing stock will continue to get more and more expensive, while existing mid-sized homes will continue to be replaced by large single-family homes and very little else. Arlington's vision to be diverse and inclusive will become less attainable. Our lowest income households are at most risk of being squeezed out. Moderate income households will also be at risk, further burdened with rising housing costs and potentially unable to rent or buy or stay here. We can't stop regional growth, but we can shift gears to manage its impact. To address these challenges locally, the County Board launched Housing Arlington in 2019. The purpose of the program is to reach beyond traditional policies and programs to achieve an equitable, stable, adaptive community. The result will be an inclusive place where households from all walks of life who earn different incomes can be at home. This includes growing families, young adults who are just starting their careers, older adults who want to age in place, teachers, police officers, firefighters, moderate income residents seeking a path to home ownership, lower income residents who may need additional assistance, and more. The umbrella program includes 6 individual initiatives. They'll expand things like land use tools, housing policy, financial resources, and innovative local and regional public-private partnerships. It's important to note that there's no single solution that will tackle all of Arlington's or the region's housing affordability challenges. The missing middle housing study is just one piece of that puzzle, just one proposed strategy within Housing Arlington's land use initiative. I want to talk for a moment about what missing middle really means. Missing middle is a commonly used term that refers to the range of housing types that fit between single-family detached homes, which you see on the left, and mid to high-rise apartment buildings, which you see all the way over on the right. Everything in the middle is considered a missing middle housing type, a physical form. Used in this context, middle references the size and the type of the home and its relative location on that scale, in the middle, on a spectrum of housing types. The examples include duplexes, triplexes, courtyard apartments, townhomes, and more. The costs of these housing types vary based on style, size, location, and market forces. Missing middle housing types do not always correlate with a specific income bracket. Fundamental questions about missing middle and housing in Arlington that we need to answer are: what other options could be added or reintroduced to our menu of possible housing types? Where? How? These are some of the things that we're going to be considering moving forward. There are many benefits to missing middle housing types. They can bridge between low and high density areas, support walkable neighborhoods and more transit options, create options for a broader range of residents, and meet the needs of a more diverse and inclusive cross-section of our community. These housing types aren't new to Arlington. In fact, many of them exist here today. The photos on this slide are examples that you can find perhaps in your own neighborhood. The study's foundation is based in 3 civic engagement and policy elements: the 2015 Affordable Housing Master Plan, the launch of Housing Arlington program, and the Fall 2019 Community Conversation Series. The County Board adopted the Affordable Housing Master Plan in 2015, and it includes the context for affordable housing in Arlington, an analysis of current and future housing needs, and affordable housing policy. The document's organized around 3 goals: having an adequate supply of housing for the community's needs, ensuring that all segments of the community have access to housing, and ensuring that housing efforts contribute to a sustainable community. The 3 policy directives listed here support the basis for a missing middle housing study, and they can be found in the Affordable Housing Master Plan. In 2018, the County Board hosted a series of roundtables discussions. These conversations with the community resulted in 3 major themes: protect Arlington's diversity, inclusive housing, and planning is never past tense. The themes have led the County Board to take action centered on equity, housing, and planning. Housing Arlington was launched in spring 2019. Since its kickoff, work on the 6 initiatives have progressed. In addition, a community conversation series was held in fall 2019. The series focused on the intersection of housing with economics, the environment, and equity. Key takeaways from the series support the basis for the missing middle housing study. You can visit the county website to view the recordings of these conversations and read more information about what we took away from these talks with the community. In December 2019, the County Board expressed support for kicking off the missing middle housing study in 2020. Goals of the study are to increase Arlington's housing supply and to diversify Arlington's range of housing types. The outcomes will be a shared understanding of the problem, options for County Board consideration, policy and/or regulation changes to enable new housing types, and identification of issues that may need further study. Key considerations for the study will include robust community engagement, an equity lens, extensive research, and evaluation. The study will be a community discussion to determine how new housing types can help address the lack of housing supply and housing diversity in Arlington. It will consider where new housing types could be introduced, what strategies could be employed to mitigate any impacts, and options for County Board consideration. I do want to clarify what the study will not be. The study will not be an across-the-board rezoning of all single-family areas. Neither will it be a process to eliminate single-family zoning. In other words, single-family homes will remain a permitted use in Arlington. The study will not codify decisions that have already been made. There is no predetermined outcome, and planning is just getting started. The study will not lead to incompatible housing types in single-family areas. In other words, no high-rises are going to be built in a single-family neighborhood. The study will not attempt to address a specific income range. As I discussed earlier, new options will aim to provide more affordability than what is currently available. It's envisioned that the study will be carried out in 3 phases, kicking off in spring 2020. This chart summarizes the milestones, outcomes, and timeline for each phase. In the following slides, we'll discuss each of these phases in a little bit more detail. Phase 1 focuses on collaborating with the community to build a common understanding. During this phase, we'll study the housing shortfall and missing middle housing gap, the rationale to take action, and develop preliminary ideas for increasing the supply of missing middle housing types. Key questions to be answered in this phase include what types of housing are missing or short in supply, what are the reasons why, and why is this a problem? The answers to these questions will be used to evaluate potential solutions. Also during this phase, the team will develop preliminary ideas for new housing types and issues to consider. This work will intersect and provide opportunities for further discussion on topics such as transportation, stormwater, trees, parking, and schools. At the conclusion of Phase 1, staff will prepare a report summarizing what we heard from the community, preliminary findings, and recommendations. The report will be reviewed with advisory boards and commissions prior to reviewing with the County Board. Phase 2 of the study will center around conducting a focused analysis of the housing types recommended in Phase 1. The project team will closely collaborate with the community to develop these recommendations. Key questions in Phase 2 will focus on design, locational issues, feasibility, policy, and regulations. At the conclusion of this phase, staff will prepare a second report summarizing the recommendations and the community conversations. The report will be reviewed by advisory boards and commissions again prior to going to the county board. Phase 3 of the study focuses on developing implementation tools. This is where staff will prepare zoning ordinance amendments and other studies needed to implement the recommendations identified in Phase 2. Community input will be used throughout this phase to guide the recommendations. The conclusion of this phase is when the county board will review final recommendations and hold public hearings prior to taking action. Central to all phases of work will be a robust community engagement effort. Community engagement is essential to collect diverse viewpoints that are the basis of decisions benefiting Arlington over the long term. Effective engagement builds public knowledge, listens to varied voices, and leads to better, more widely accepted decisions. It requires a continuous dialogue with all members of the community. The Missing Middle Housing Study shares Housing Arlington's engagement goals. Motivate participation from a broad audience, where community members are equitably represented. Foster a cooperative process that collects and utilizes meaningful feedback prior to decision making. And third, empower an informed community partner network that can use their voices to further these goals. The following principles will guide staff's design and communication of engagement efforts. Inclusion and mutual respect for all stakeholders, early involvement and timely communication, a transparent, accountable process, clear, accessible information and participation opportunities, open two-way dialogues, effectively used fiscal and staff resources, and responsiveness to evaluations for improvement. Throughout the study, county staff will engage with 3 groups. The first, the broadest group, are stakeholders or anyone in the general public with a vested interest in the study. They'll be invited to attend all community meetings, participate in person and online. Through these engagement opportunities, they will be able to collaborate with county staff in answering central study questions. Stakeholders are encouraged to remain connected to the study through Housing Arlington communication channels, which staff will continuously update with important study information. The next group, community partners. The county will enlist a network of community partners to facilitate broader study participation and advocate for more voices in this process. Individuals and community groups or organizations who wish to become a community partner will be invited to sign up via the project website. Community partners will be provided engagement toolkits and regularly encouraged to share study information with their own networks. The varied types of dialogues community partners enable will expand the study's reach, bring an additional layer of perspectives, and contribute to achieving the study's engagement goals. The county will provide partners with an easy-to-use template for reporting back what they've heard. Periodically, the county will convene community partners to provide them updates on the next phase and more information that they can share with their groups. Periodically, county staff may co-host or attend meetings with community partners. These community meetings would be open to the general public. Finally, staff is considering varying models of a citizen participation group, such as a citizen advisory group or working group or other model that would help provide expertise and feedback along the way. The community engagement process will be interwoven throughout each phase of work. Major milestones and community meetings are anticipated in both Phase 1 and Phase 2. Ongoing engagement through the community partner network is anticipated throughout. Prior to concluding each phase, deliverables and outcomes will be reviewed with community stakeholders, commissions, and ultimately the county board. Next steps for county staff are to complete pre-planning tasks and research. Staff will be compiling research into a shareable compendium that will be posted for everyone's use. We encourage you to visit the Missing Middle Housing Study website. Most importantly, please review the draft scope of work document and provide your feedback on it by March 1st. A brief 5-minute survey is posted to collect your input. We're asking questions such as, how would you like to be engaged or kept informed throughout this process? Do you have thoughts on what the citizen advisory group how they should form? Do each of the phases allow for adequate community input? We're not tossing around housing ideas just yet. First, we want to make sure we're set up for a productive, efficient process with the right steps outlined. We're inviting you to help us get it right before the study even kicks off. After you've shared your feedback, be sure to check out the rest of the project website. You can sign up to be a community partner, subscribe for study updates in your inbox, and learn more about other Housing Arlington initiatives. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, you can reach us by email at housingarlington@arlingtonva.us.